Welcome everyone to the House Commerce and Senate Commerce Conference Committee. We will begin with Senate Bill 91, as that is a carryover from a previous year. We understand the House has some recommended changes, so we are willing to take those at this time.
Thank you, Senator. I've got Representative Long and Representative Clayton with me today. Thanks for having us, and thanks for taking, I know you're very busy, and so we'll try to make this as quick as we can. Senate Bill 91 is a product of 5 or 6 years worth of work to try to get this done, but basically businesses are looking for ways to bring students in to show them what they do and how they do it and get them interested in different trades. But they were worried about the liability that would create by having a student in their business. And so we put this bill together, and years ago we tried to make the work-based learning part of school activities, which would be like a football team. You would buy insurance for extracurricular activities, and that was the original approach. That didn't really work, and so we just rewrote it with given some liability insurance or to the business so that they're not liable and keeping the kid liable for their actions, which led to references to purchasing insurance in the bill. And so that caused a lot of confusion. That was left over from the original bill when we were going to put them under the school activity side. So the question became then, once we passed the bill, well, there is no product to buy for this. And there isn't. And that's because they're already covered under general liability. So in the case that a student would be in a workplace and caused an issue, or there was an issue, both the school and the business would be sued, and both insurance policies would respond. And so there is no insurance to buy for having a kid in a work-based situation. It's just a underwriting question and an actuarial issue. So they'll probably, my guess is an insurance company would say, how many students do you have and what are they doing? And then their actuaries can decide if there's any additional premium for the current coverage or not. Maybe they won't ask, but either way, the general liability policy would respond. And so our suggestion is to remove all references to purchasing insurance out of the bill. In section 1 and 2, and then, section 1A, 1 and 2, and remove or strike sections 2 and 3 from the bill totally, because that is where we had the work-based, or that's where we had the attempt to put the students under school activity. Then there was one other request. I think the unions didn't like the word apprenticeships in here, and it's kind of redundant anyway, because apprenticeships are paid, and it is referenced in this bill that once a student is paid, they become an employee. So this bill would not apply to a paid student. So those are the recommended changes.
Thank you. We appreciate those changes. If you would just give us a moment to discuss. Yes, Senator Holland.
Okay, okay. No, thank you, Chairman, for bringing this forward. This is something that's kind of near and dear to me. Eudora High School has both a culinary school as well as they have a work program for kids actually going out to construction site and building homes. So I want to be sure I understand. So basically, say a kid goes off and is helping a builder build a home, say near the school. Say that kid, injures himself on the job. Then does it fall upon his parents? Does he actually have to file suit against the developer as well as the school? Does that have to go through the courts, or is there an expedited process? Do we know how that works? And how do we know that the developers in general liability says, hey, this isn't me, and the school says, hey, this isn't me? How do we know that that child doesn't fall through the crack where nobody's covering him?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. Yeah, this does not this bill does not address the process, but it does state that if it was the kid's negligence, the kid's insurance would respond. If it was not, and the kid was injured, the school has the sole responsibility. So it does state that in the bill that the school is liable for that, and the business is not.
So the business is never liable?
Not for anything except for gross negligence and when transporting a student. The business is still liable if they have an accident while transporting a student.
Okay, so let me ask you this question then. If the student is injured on the job and it was not through a fault of the student, then the school then would be liable, is what you're saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then what would happen is does our work comp, that does not come into play here, does it? Because they would not be considered a W-2 employee? What's the thoughts on that?
When they're at the business in the capacity of learning and not being paid, this bill would apply, and it would be only when they are there for school activity or for the school learning. If they're paid, they become an employee and it would be a workers' compensation issue then. So in the case that you have a student that is participating in this program and also getting paid, he is an employee, and that is spelled out in this bill.
Okay, at that point, then the employer's GC kicks in.
Their workers'
general liability kicks in.
It would be a
work comp
workers'
thing under that.
compensation issue, yes.
Right, okay. So, but if this is, say, just an internship or the is not getting paid, then the only recourse for damages would be going back to the school district, correct?
That is correct.
And would the school district be liable, or is there a chance they could go to the school district and say, hey, this isn't my issue, this happened off school grounds? Do we know what the outcome of that, or do we?
Well, I mean, anything could happen, I guess, in court, but the bill does spell out that the school has the sole responsibility.
Okay, and has that been reviewed by the school association, or are they on board with this? What type of education buy-in do we have on that liability provision?
When they first testified in House Commerce, they were against the bill mainly because of the transportation issues.
Okay.
We addressed that concern for them, and they also had a concern that there was no insurance policy to purchase. So we've addressed that concern for them. I believe they're more neutral now rather than opponents.
So KASB is aware of this?
They've been keenly aware of this.
Would that be your impression? They are the reference, they would be the stakeholder for school districts in this matter?
I think there was in addition to the KASB, the Wichita School District had some concerns, but we addressed those at the time.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? Okay, if you just give us a few moments, we'd appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, we are ready to come back, and appreciate you granting us a little time to discuss. And the Senate has looked at this and know that this is an important piece for getting our students the experience and opportunities that they need. We're confident that this is a good starting point, and we can move forward with this, so we agree with these changes to the bill.
Okay, great. Then we'll go ahead and have it drafted and make a motion to concur I think Senate bill, you guys probably go first.
I think since it's a Senate bill, you guys go
We do?
first.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that. And Representative Clayton had something to add.
Yeah, no, actually, I'm good.
Okay, so that concludes Senate Bill 91.
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Chair, we will yield to you for House Bill 2703.
Okay, in regards, thank you, Senator. In regards to HB 2703, this is the trailer bill for the unemployment. And you guys made some changes, and I would like to recommend a few other changes. If you look at page 26, beginning with line 1, we have in there that we kind of lock our rate in for the next year if the funds aren't put in to the trust fund from the federal dollars and by a certain date. And that's fine. However, it appears that our fund is now to the point to where our employers will qualify for a better rate. Is a possibility. And so I wanted to make sure that our businesses were able to capitalize on that, and I think it's worth about $50 million if they can get to the lower rate. And that would be just the normal rate schedule that we're currently on. And so I wanted to add, unless it is determined by actual calculation pursuant to Fund Control Table B, that the credit schedules would apply based on the health of the Unemployment Insurance Trust Fund. And that would clear up that issue. You want to start with that, or do you want me to continue?
Continue, please.
Okay, thank you. On page 34 of the bill, you made some changes. Instead of, I guess you kind of reworded the people that were not mandatory on the my reemployment plan. And one of them was claimants that are members of a placement union or claimants engaged in a training program. We believe that anyone that is unemployed for a period of time should participate in the My Reemployment Plan, and just because they're a member of a union, it shouldn't excuse them from participating and looking for a new job. And so we would reject that change. And I would like to add for the layoff claimants that have a date certain. It seems like we continue to go on and on in some cases where they will be laid off with a date certain, and then that layoff will get extended out. And so I would like to protect the trust fund and help these individuals find a new job if they can after 8 weeks in a row of being a claimant. That is not 8 claimant weeks. That is 8 weeks per layoff. And so if they're laid off for more than 8 weeks, they would then start to have to participate. But if they were laid off for 4 weeks, went back to work, and in the same year were laid off for another 4 weeks, they would have to get to an 8-week session on the second time, if that makes sense. On the next page of my notes here, the Secretary of Commerce was taken out of the of monitoring the program, and I think that it's important that the Secretary of Commerce still monitor the program. Someone needs to be in charge of monitoring the program to make sure it's working. Now, in the long run, it may be better to put the entire Kansas Works in my reemployment plan under the Department of Labor, but that's to be addressed at a different time. That's a heavier lift than a conference committee report would be able to do. And so, for the time being, I would say that I would like the department or the Secretary of Commerce to monitor the my reemployment plan rather than a school. And that basically the whole top side of page 2 would just go back to how HB 2196 was originally written. Then there was one more issue, page 7 of 12 on my notes, that shall mean was changed to means to match the rest of the bill. That was a technical cleanup, but on the final back side of the page, we would like after 8 weeks of unemployment that the Secretary of Labor shall audit 100% of the work search activity of an individual. We are receiving complaints from businesses that they'll receive resumes and they will call to schedule interviews with no avail. And then the individuals are saying that they did have an interview. And so that we would like someone to check that after 8 weeks to make sure that they're actually looking for work. And that's all we have at this point. Representative Clayton.
Actually, I do have something. I wanted to ask you in the Senate. I know that there was a change that was made. So this would be on the first page of the House offer where striking that claimants that are members of a placement union or claimants that are engaged in a training program. It is my understanding that that came to an agreement where both SHRM and the Kansas Chamber were okay with it. And so, knowing my alignment with those groups historically, I too am okay with this and do not support this strike. So I'm going to deviate from the House position in that regard and in signaling to you that sometimes I do support the Senate position. It does happen.
I appreciate that. And yes, the discussion on that was just trying to clarify and specify who would be subject to this and who would not. So I'm going to turn to my vice and see if you had any questions or additional comments on that piece of this.
We did hear from both those organizations, SHRM and others, because when you're in a trade union and you go to the union hall, you're waiting for the job to appear. And so to have to go through the My Reemployment Plan didn't make sense for those folks, the iron workers and the electricians and those trade groups. So that was really the agreement, that it just put another pressure on those groups that wasn't even necessary and created more work for the My Reemployment Plan people. So, because they're going to get a job, they're just waiting in line for the next one that comes available. Very temporary. And it was a negotiated agreement between those groups. That's why we inserted it into the bill the way it is.
I guess I do have a question. So the claimants that are currently employed but no longer reside in Kansas, can you clarify that portion, please?
Well, my thought process there was that just because they don't live in Kansas doesn't mean they don't have to look for work. And so we would still like those individuals to look for work.
Because they are receiving benefits.
Right, because they're receiving benefits. As long as if they're going to get paid for unemployment, we want to make sure that they have to do the same work that Kansans do to find the next job.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions, clarifications? Okay, if you would give us a moment to discuss.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and committee, for your work on all of these changes. We do very much appreciate it, and we do have a response to your proposal. The Senate agrees with the first change, unless is determined by actual calculation pursuant to Fund Control Table B. The Senate agrees with that. On the next section, I believe the reviser has a clarifying question, and then we will let you know our position. Charles?
Thank you, Madam. Chairman, I just wanted to get clear about the changes that you were making on the bottom of the first page there. I think maybe I was preoccupied or something, and I didn't quite get those clear. With respect to the list of claimants that are exempt, that would be exempted from the My Employment Plan.
I think I can help clear it up a little bit, Charles. That during the first 8 consecutive weeks of benefits should be on the line above it, right between date and claimants. Or, I'm sorry, 2 lines up between program and claimants. So during the first 8 consecutive weeks of benefits, claimants on temporary layoff with a return to work date. That's where that belongs, is up there. So that if somebody is laid off for a certain period of time with a return to work date, they would not have to participate unless that layoff went longer than 8 weeks. And it wouldn't trigger until the last day of the eighth week. And that's consecutive weeks. And so if there were 2 or 3 layoffs during the year, each time it would start over with 8 weeks. And the intent there was because layoffs today are a lot different than they were previous because of supply issues. And so we've got people that are laid off for 3 or 4 weeks, and then that gets extended to another 3 or 4 weeks, and then another 3 or 4 weeks, and it just keeps going. And it would be good for those people to better themselves by looking for a different position rather than just collecting unemployment. Does that clear it up?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. Then you are also striking the words "or that no longer reside in Kansas." Is that correct?
Yes.
And then on the sheet that was handed out, there's an additional text, or during the first 8 consecutive weeks of benefits, claimants that are current reemployment services and eligibility assessment participants. So do you still want that during the first 8 consecutive weeks of benefits to modify the exception for claimants that are current reemployment services and eligibility assessment participants?
No, I didn't. The RESA people are fine. That 8 consecutive weeks was only for claimants that are laid off with a certain date certain. And then the final strike there was the claimants that are members of a placement union, and that was because of I understand the that they're waiting for a new job or they're just between jobs, but my reemployment plan doesn't kick in until the 3rd consecutive week, and so if they're sitting around for that long waiting for the next job, then they should be looking for a job, in my opinion. But you may have a different route there, Senator.
Does that provide your clarification? That, Charles?
Yes, thank you.
Mr. Chair, that was our understanding. We just wanted to make sure that we were all on the same page, and I believe we are fine with that. In regard to this package of changes, we accept the changes other than the last strike of claimants that are members of a placement union or claimants that are engaged in a training program. You want me to keep going, or you want to?
Yeah, you can keep going.
Okay. On the next one, the Secretary of Commerce shall monitor. We have a slight suggestion in language with that, just to clarify the scope of that monitoring. So it would read, the Secretary of Commerce shall monitor those My Reemployment Plan claimants participating in training managed by the workforce centers to ensure compliance. And that's in keeping with consistency with the Department of Commerce and their scope of being able to monitor those individuals. So we would make that counteroffer on that piece.
Could you restate that? I'm sorry.
Yes. So it would read, the Secretary of Commerce shall monitor those My Reemployment Plan claimants participating in training managed by the workforce centers to ensure compliance.
Okay, so you're just more or less defining what program, where it says program.
Correct,
Okay.
just to clarify that and make sure that that scope is defined. We agree with the changing shall mean to means and just keeping the language consistent. On the back page, we do agree, but we do want to make sure that the Department of Labor has the capacity to handle that workload. And so we're curious if that had been, had a conversation with the Department of Labor as to what resources it would take to comply with that.
I did not have a conversation with the Department of Labor regarding capacity to do that, but I believe that was what they are to do all along.
Thank you for that. In order just to streamline this process and so that we can talk about everything that we want to accomplish in this bill, I would also like the House to consider amending in the contents of House Bill 2219, Sections 1 through 6, into this bill. And that is the bill that gives a tax credit to employers for employing people with developmental disabilities. Yes, sir.
Would you mind repeating the sections, please? You said 1 through 6?
It's 1 through 6. The
Thank you.
only thing it is excluding is Section 7, which is the enforcement date, to be consistent with 2703.
Thank you.
And Senator, would that be as amended by the Senate?
Yes, please.
Senator, I think the House is fine with all your changes with with one additional ask. On the claimants that are members of a placement union, would you consider adding active members in good standing? That way, just because they have a union card doesn't mean they don't have to be participating in my reemployment plan, but if they are an active member of a union and participating in the union, then they would not.
Thank you, appreciate that. Give us just one moment, please. Thank you for your indulgence, Mr. Chair. We just wanted, it sounded reasonable. We just wanted to do some verification. We understood all of the ins and outs of that, and we do agree with adding that language in on that piece.
Okay, thank you. It sounds like we have an agreement. Can we have someone, Charles, could you repeat what we're agreeing to make sure that we're all on the same page before we walk
Before we
out
do
here?
that, we do have one quick, we do, on the Department of Labor, verifying that work search activity, we do want to, we do have a call in to verify that that verbiage is acceptable. Other than that, we are in agreement.
So do you want to reconvene at a later time after you get your answer, or?
If you could provide some clarification, we would love that. If you could come to the microphone, please, and state your name for the record.
The red light mean us on? Okay. Julie Mangini with the Kansas Department of Labor, Government Affairs Director. It's my understanding that that would be a little bit outside of KDOL's lane because the workforce centers, all of that falls under the Department of Commerce. So I'm not sure how we would be able to monitor that progress because most of MRP is done through the Department of Commerce, not the Department of Labor.
Chair Tarwater.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, Senator. We're not asking the Department of Labor to monitor the My Reemployment Plan. Just verify that the claimants have actually sent resumes and shown up for interviews to the people that they claim when they fill out each week, when they register the companies that they spoke with, that they're supposed to be looking for work. We're asking them to audit that only.
In light of that, do you have clarification?
I will double check, but I'm fairly sure, I'm not sure how we would do that process, honestly. So my gut is that we would not be in favor of that, but I'm going to double check real quick. How's that?
Appreciate that. And Mr. Chair, in concept, I believe that we are in agreement that accountability needs to be there due to the complaints that we have had from businesses. It's just the process that we are wanting to clarify. So we are doing caucus at 3:30. If we could just have hopefully get clarification on that. That's the only loose end on our part that we would like to tie up and go from there, if that's acceptable to the House.
That's acceptable to the House. So you do want to reconvene then?
Yes.
At what, do you have a certain time?
Are you available at midnight tonight? That might be the only. No, honestly, I think, I know you guys are on the floor at 5, we're on at 4. Ideally, if we could get off of the floor, even if we're just step away, if we're not on a vote, before you have to go on at 5. So would there be able to get clarification by 4:30? Okay, so can we tentatively plan at 4:30?
That works for us.
Do we need to be back in a room to be on the record? Or can we go to the rail? Are you guys good with just meeting at the rail before you go in?
You'll have to make that announcement because we're not going to be on
Okay.
the floor before then, but that's fine. 4:30 at the rail. And for clarification, you're okay with the audit. You just need to make sure that I would imagine that when they fill out that report each week, that they would put the name of the business and the contact information in there. If not, and I would imagine if they're not already doing this, they really need to be doing this. Otherwise, you're just taking everybody's word for it, and that just doesn't seem to work.
Agree, we need to have the accountability. We just want to make sure that we're clear on who's going to be responsible for that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
We'll see
you.
at the rail.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks to all the staff and for everyone for being here. We are adjourned.